Greetings and welcome to another episodic installation of the Abulvital Shah. The Abulvital Shah. Hello? The Above It All Show. It's a show today. Doing a show. Could be. Anyway. Doing a program. Hey, how's it going? Welcome everybody to the Above It All program. I'm here to do a show today. How's the smoke inhalation, everyone? Apparently, still 1/3 of Americans are having some fun, breathing in some, becoming a part-time chimney sweep, just like good old Dick Van Dyke. And, I am also dealing with this situation, though, not nearly as extreme as some other people, but yeah, I go outside, I smell smoke in the air. It's pretty fucked up. But anyway, we'll be talking about that and more. I'm going to be making a COVID analog for that in a moment, later on in this show. In fact, actually, maybe I'll just do it now. Yeah. Let's just do it now. Why do it later? I'm already in. Why not? All right. So, I'm going to show you a headline. Now, before I do that, I want to ground you in the real world, where we are in our journey as humans in America. If you don't live in America, you're just have fun watching the show. I envy you. But, we live in a time where we are in a very deadly pandemic, where the top cause of death when it comes to infectious disease, COVID-19, is being globally underreported and covered up. The United States government has been lying to us about COVID and how dangerous it is, pretty much since March of 2020. Some people think that Joe Biden somehow fixed COVID. Those people are just as dumb as the MAGA people. Really, if you haven't gotten a vaccine in the last year, if you don't wear a mask or haven't worn a mask consistently every time you've left the house in the last year, you're no different than a MAGA person. Make America great again. That's you. You want to make America great again. You are a conservative if you don't wear a mask during a deadly pandemic, which we are still in, by the way. Thousands of people dying every week, but no one cares because the genocide of the vulnerable, the genocide of the elderly, the genocide of the disabled doesn't matter to the average American. But with all of this in mind, right, we are now dealing with a situation where major cities are dealing with wildfire smoke, a side effect of fossil fuel industries basically just robbing our planet, stealing all of its resources, burning it all up in the atmosphere, and dying a bunch of billionaires. And so, now that I've placed you all in reality, now, again, I'm not sure how many of you actually acknowledge reality that are watching or listening to this, but now that I've placed you in reality, let's check out this headline. Did New York leaders leave residents unprepared for the air quality crisis? And then what do? They show a thumbnail image of some stupid motherfucker holding a fucking surgical mask, not an N95, a surgical mask on, no loops even. They're just Now, I like to play video games. Some would consider me a gamer, lowercase g. I view this as a zombie apocalypse. I view this as, Dead Rising, Left 4 Dead, maybe a little bit of Fallout, you ever play Fallout? These are zombies. Let's just be honest. The average person that exists is a zombie. Let's just be honest. 90 to 95% of people walking around in the United States of America don't think. They're not rational creatures. How do I know this? We're in a deadly pandemic, and yet people are still going outside. People are still going to restaurants. People are still going to bars. People are still going to work in poorly ventilated areas. People are still sending their kids to school. How do you explain that behavior? Other than they're zombies. What are zombies? Think about it. What is the root definition of zombie? Someone that has been, let's say, theoretically infected with some sort of virus that causes them to behave aggressively and irrationally, but also to follow a very explicit set of instructions. Oftentimes in media, what do zombies want to do? They want to eat your brains. So they're going to do whatever they can to eat your brains, right? That's the common media trope with zombies. And that's the average American. Gotta go to work, gotta pay the bills, gotta pay rent, gotta send my kid to school. And everyone's just, now I'm not saying that you should just stop paying your rent, but what I'm saying is collectively, we should probably do something about the idea that our government is systematically killing us. Whether it be COVID, wildfire smoke inhalation, which, by the way, imagine you are 1 year old and you're breathing in a bunch of fucking smoke during extremely important areas of development. Let's say you're 93 years old and you're breathing in extensive amounts of smoke. I mean, this is just fucking crazy ass shit. And again, this headline: did New York leaders leave residents unprepared for the air quality crisis? Now, the thing about this headline that makes me enraged is that the New York Times, which is what this article is from, has been on the forefront of pandemic cover-up activity. The New York Times is one of the most pro-genocide news outlets that somehow has mainstream respect. Not many people respect Fox News, even though they're pro-genocide. New York Times is pro-genocide, and a lot of people read their articles. They have participated in the cover-up of an infectious disease that is the world's leading cause of death when it comes to infectious diseases. It has been covered up. And they're going to do the same fucking thing with this wildfire smoke outbreak. What they're going to do is they're going to feign concern. Oh, we care so much. Oh, look at us, we care. And then slowly but surely, they're going to say, oh, it's no big deal. Everything's back to normal. Look at us. We're reporting the news. They get you in. This is the bait. Oh, I respect New York Times. Look, they're calling out New York. As if that actually matters, right? But let's read this. New Yorkers have grown accustomed to being inundated with well-intentioned warnings from the city and state leaders for everything from incoming snowstorms to virus outbreaks. But as skies darkened dramatically over New York City on Tuesday evening, the air suddenly rich with acrid smoke, Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul made no public appearances about the worsening conditions, limiting their communications to news releases and posts on Twitter. It was not until Wednesday morning, roughly 12 hours after the air quality reached historically unhealthy levels, before Mr. Adams and Mr. Hochul addressed reporters to discuss the health crisis. They knew about this shit for weeks, and they did nothing. And if you are wondering why they did nothing. Ask yourself when the last time you wore a mask was. Politicians treat you like idiots because you are idiots. If you actually stopped wearing a mask because the government said the pandemic was over, then you are, and I say this with complete sincerity and with the intent for you to learn a lesson from this, extremely dumb. Extremely dumb. I'm talking about impressive levels of dumb. Like, we should probably donate your body to science. You are so fucking precious in your own stupidity. The government treats you like fucking idiots, and you let them, and you give them the reinforcing feedback. The government wouldn't treat you like the dumb fuck you are if you weren't such a fucking dumb fuck. It's that simple. If we lived in a country with an educated, informed population, then politicians would be unable to treat us like they do. But politicians know, more than most of us do probably, how most, and when I say most, I'm talking minimum, the floor, 80% of Americans are fucking stupid. They are dumb motherfuckers. I'm sorry if that triggers you. Get your fucking shit together. 80% of Americans refuse the latest round of COVID vaccines, as we are in the deadliest part of the pandemic. And now we are facing a combination of a deadly pandemic, infectious disease, with wildfire smoke, which is going to be a very big double whammy. And Americans are still, look at this thumbnail image. People are still walking around outside, no masks on. This fella's wearing one, but look at that, look at that, look at those. Because Americans are fucking stupid. I need you to really understand. You might be thinking I'm overreacting, blah, blah, blah. I need you to understand. 80% is the floor. Now, my personal opinion, right, unscientifically backed up, scientifically backed up, 80% is the floor for dumbass Americans, right? That is the minimum, backed up by science. What is the science? Well, there's a it's free, safe, effective vaccine for a deadly virus that kills thousands of people a week, and 80% of people said, nah. That makes them objectively dumb fucks. There is no argument. There is no debate. You are a fucking moron. That is the floor, 80%. I personally believe it is closer to 95%. Why do I believe that? Well, there is another statistic I like to talk about on my show, and it is the fiber intake statistic compared with the metabolic dysfunction of the average American. Did you know that only 5% of Americans eat vegetables every day? Look it up. 5% of Americans eat vegetables every day. Now, how many Americans, what is the percentage of Americans that understand that vegetables are healthy and need to be consumed every day to become a healthy person? Now, I'm sure that there's some, really fucking cringy carnivore people out there that just, they genuinely believe vegetables are poison because of lectins or whatever, whatever. But I think most Americans understand that vegetables are healthy. And yet, 95% of Americans don't eat vegetables. And what is that? What happens when you don't eat vegetables? And this goes into the next statistic. 93%, there's a 2% delta, and, that's probably just kids that are just not metabolically ill yet. 93% of Americans have some form of metabolic dysfunction. What happens when you are chronically metabolically ill? It is a chronic health condition. 93% of Americans have a chronic health condition that is the major precursor for diabetes and obesity 93% of, look it up, 93% of Americans have the biggest major precursor for diabetes, death, obesity, other health complications. So what happens when 93% of Americans are living with chronic sickness? Well, one, it is so widespread and normalized that people think being sick all the time is being healthy. People don't know what being healthy is. When 93% of a country is sick, literally every day of their lives, that reverberates culturally. And so it also leads to what kinds of health problems besides liver failure, fatty liver, diabetes, obesity. It leads to brain fog. It leads to low energy levels. It leads to not being able to form memories, retain information as easily. That's part of the brain fog. It leads to irritability, anxiety, depression. So when 93% of a country is chronically ill, can you really blame them for being too dumb to do anything about it? How did we get to this point? The American government started subsidizing unhealthy foods in the 1960s and 70s. Why? Because Richard Nixon was afraid that black people were going to lead a revolution because of lack of food. That's literally why. Look it up. So Richard Nixon decided to heavily subsidize the corn industry. Now, for those of you that don't know, corn, pretty fucking unhealthy. Now, there's some recipes out there where corn isn't necessarily a bad addition. But for the most part, corn's not that good for you. And they also decided to genetically modify these corn plants, as well as selectively evolve them without genetic modifications, so that they can mass produce things called corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup does similar amounts of damage to the liver and the brain as alcohol does. 1 in 5 children, 1 in 5, 20% of children have fatty liver disease, a disease that 50 years ago was only associated with alcoholics that drank for decades, that drank extensive amounts of alcohol for 10, 20 years. That is where fatty liver disease originated. 1 in 5 children in the United States have the disease of alcohol without ever consuming alcohol. Why? The juice boxes, the cereal, the Hot Pockets, the frozen pizzas, the pizza rolls, the candy, the Coca-Cola, and all of that. It is as poisonous as alcohol, and yet it's legal. And in fact, it's part of culture. Sit your kid down with a juice box and leave them in front of the TV. That's how we raise our children now in this broken country. So, New York Times asks, did New York leaders leave residents unprepared for the air quality crisis? You're missing the point. There is no such thing as being prepared, because we live in a country that is currently in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. This is a zombie apocalypse. And people genuinely need to actually start thinking of it in these terms. Now, again, is it like Left 4 Dead where zombies are running all over the place and killing people and eating their guts in the street? No. This isn't a video game. This isn't like Night of the Living Dead. This is real life, and things happen differently in real life than they do in media. But for all intents and purposes, this is a zombie apocalypse. And that's the thing about zombies, is zombies don't know they're zombies. They're running on instinct. They don't understand that they're zombies. And that's what makes them so dangerous. So you could read more of this, but this shit doesn't matter. They should have distributed N95 masks. I covered this yesterday. Years ago. You know, for the fucking pandemic. That, by the way, is still happening. But they didn't. Because they know that you will take it. Politicians know that you are a worthless pussy and you will do fuck all to fix your position, and you won't hold them accountable. You won't even fix yourself. You won't even fix your family. If politicians know that people are so lazy and stupid and broken down that they won't even look after their own family members, that they won't even look after themselves, why should they fear you? Why should politicians fear you in any way? Why should they help you at all? When they know that they can get away with anything? They can get away with anything, and they will. And they keep doing it, and they will keep doing it. And it's not going to stop, because Americans are zombies. It's a mission success. The American people are fucking zombies. And it's already over. In the same way that we cannot reverse climate change, I personally believe we cannot reverse the American zombies. So where does this leave the 5 to 7% of the population that knows how to eat vegetables, or the 18% of the population that knows how to take a vaccine for the deadliest infectious disease we've ever seen in our lifetimes? What do? We hole up, we board up, we prepare. That's the only thing I have to say. That's my only actionable advice that I can give you. Buy air purifiers. Buy water filtration systems. Buy canned food. Because you're going to need it. So, I don't know what to tell you. Strap up. Put your seatbelt on, because we are in it for the long haul. So anyway, I'm not trying to depress people with my political perspective. I'm trying to, get people to really pay attention to the world in the way that I do. And that's obviously the point of every political show. But, I'm a part of an extremely small minority. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even talking about being queer. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about somebody that understands what the fuck's happening in this world. Let's keep going. Once again, during the 4th year of an escalating, deadly pandemic, where the government of the United States has covered up and stopped counting and stopped reporting and even just stopped talking about the most deadly infectious disease that we have seen in our lifetime, as far as raw death count worldwide, the government is engaged in full-scale cover-up. And I see headlines all over the place that really make me want to tear my eyeballs out, to be honest with you. And here's another one. Philly schools to shift to virtual instruction Friday as air quality issues continue. .999% of people in this country under the age of 18 have undergone a mandatory medical experiment against their consent and, in most cases, without their knowledge. COVID-19 has been infected on almost, again, according to the CDC, it's 99.99% of under 18s. You know, we could round up, but whatever. They have been infected with a debilitating disease, and adults did nothing. You ever see these people running around, protect the kids, protect the kids, protect the kids? If you sent your kid to school, and I know this may sound harsh to the parents in my audience, you failed to protect your kid. It's just that simple. Now, is it your fault? We can debate that. We can debate it. We can play the blame game. Whose fault is it that my kid has now a lifelong debilitating illness that could and probably will pop up at some point later on in their life, similar to polio? Is it your fault? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Your kid got a raw deal. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. The only thing that is true about it is that every single child in this country underwent, without their consent, a mandatory medical experiment in the form of being infected with a novel virus that we didn't know anything about. And now we know how fucking disgusting and deadly it is and how it destroys your body. And parents keep sending their kids to school. Get infected again. Get infected again. Get infected again. If you send a child to school during a pandemic, that is child abuse. Now, again, I know and I recognize, as someone who was a victim of child abuse when I was young, I recognize that child abuse is the norm in this society. I understand that. The default is to abuse your children. Maybe not physically, like in my case, I was physically abused a lot in my childhood, but emotionally. One of the most insidious forms of childhood trauma and abuse is gaslighting. Telling children things will be all right when they're very clearly not going to be all right. Telling children, don't cry, when kids just need to express themselves. Telling children that they need to stand in the corner because they misbehaved, instead of coming to an understanding on what that misbehavior is and why that may not be acceptable in a wider society. Parents love shortcuts. In this country, this culture has been soft on parents for far, far too motherfucking long. Parents are petty tyrants. Parents are police in the family unit. Now, again, I know that there are some people that had magical childhoods. I'm aware of that. I'm aware. And you got lucky. And I'm happy for you. Genuinely. But when I read headlines like this, Philly schools shift to virtual instruction Friday as air quality issues continue, I think, as air quality issues continue, we've had an air quality issue for going on 5 years now. We're in year 4 of an ongoing air quality issue. So, what changed? Oh, the sky is orange in some parts of the country. Wow. That's what changed. We installed a texture pack, folks. We got a reskin. We got a new Fortnite character. And so now people, all of a sudden, what I am saying is it's purely cosmetic. What I am saying is the air quality issue has always been horrible for the last couple of years now. And now it's just a different color. And now all of a sudden people are freaking out. Philadelphia school district buildings will be closed to students Friday with classes held virtually as air quality issues continue to plague the region. Superintendent Tony B. Waltington Sr. said in his Thursday night email sent to school communities that the move is happening out of abundance of caution for the health of students. Like I said earlier, the most insidious form of childhood abuse is gaslighting. Why do I say that? Children do not have an unbiased, objective point of view on reality. What children perceive as reality is shaped by the adults around them. When parents tell them things, when school administrators, authorities, police, people on television, role models, whatever, teachers, whatever, parents, other older siblings, when these adults in a child's life tell them things that the child fundamentally feels are untrue, what happens? The child's ability to perceive reality is fundamentally altered in the brain. I know this from personal experience. I spent most of my life blaming myself for my chronic health issues because my mother told me that it was all my fault. From a young age, from 5 or 6 years old, I had a lot of chronic health issues as a kid. My mom would constantly blame me. It's all my fault. I'm a broken kid. I internalized that. For most of my life, I thought I was broken and it was my fault. I made some mistake that I don't remember, and it caused me to have that internalized belief for a long time. But that is just an extreme perspective. This sort of insidious gaslighting is taking place here. The superintendent, after several years of infecting students with COVID and then having those students go home and infect their parents with COVID, all of a sudden wants us to believe that magically out of nowhere, he is doing something out of an abundance of caution for the health of students. Gaslighting. Now, again, children do not have an independent, unbiased understanding of reality. Their reality is shaped by the authority figures in their lives. Now, again, I'm 27 years old now. I understand that as a kid, I was lied to and I was manipulated. I understand that being sick as a 5-year-old couldn't possibly be my fault. How ridiculous does that sound? And how did I reach that understanding? By growing up and finding my own independent understanding of reality. And it took me a while because I was handicapped from the jump. Some people, they have normal or less tragic childhoods where they are quickly able to start becoming independent and understand what's going on in the real world. And again, this is happening culturally everywhere. Every child is being abused in this country because this country is an abusive country and an abusive culture, with very few exceptions. So, what is the point of this? Well, the point is we're fucked. That's the point. And the point is, just you wait. Just you wait. Because remember COVID? When the pandemic started, And people were like, ooh, let's wash our hands. Let's stay inside. And then a month later, it turned into, I want my hair cut. I want to go play laser tag. I want to go out to eat at a 5-star restaurant. I want to fly on a plane. The adult toddlers in this country gave up after a month. So, you think that they care about the caution when it comes to wildfire smoke inhalation? You got a lot to learn, buddy. You got a lot to learn. Because if you weren't paying attention over the last 4 years, if you're not going to pay, how many culturally shocking radicalization moments does there have to be for you to fucking wake the fuck up to this fucking garbage country, this garbage society that we're living in? How many? 5, 10, 20, 30? How many? I thought people would react to COVID by saying, damn, our government left our family members to die. I have people I know that got sick with COVID. I have people that I know that have family members die of COVID. Most people in this country probably know someone who knows someone who's died of COVID. Or even know someone who's died of COVID. And how do they honor that family member's death at the hands of a government that put them in that position? By following in lockstep with what the government did to kill their family members and doing it to the next generation. Because I need you to understand that Americans are zombies and they cannot think for themselves. So we can blame the government. That's fine. Whatever. If that makes you feel better. I'm all about the blame game. It's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. Whatever. What can you do? If you are somebody that stopped wearing a mask because the government told you to, yikes. And if you haven't learned that lesson yet, I don't know. You're pretty fucking stupid. That I do know. Well, that doesn't help me. Well, let's keep going. I want to play a news clip here. Now, again, this is research that is still relatively new on the effects of COVID-19 on the brain. There's going to be more studies being done. But we have some new information here. And again, this is relatively new. It's very possible in the future we'll have a different understanding of these mechanisms. But COVID affects the brain. COVID is not the flu. COVID is a deadly virus that fundamentally changes how your organs function. So this is an article from 9 News Sydney. Now note, this is not in the United States of America. Let's watch.
We know what long COVID is. We know the debilitating symptoms so many suffer. But we haven't known the reason why until now. Sydney scientists think they've cracked the code and their research is being recognised around the world.
Research chemist Ole Tietz is fitter than most. A long-distance runner who's been hit for 6 by long COVID. Not once, but twice.
It's really surprised me because I like to consider myself quite an active guy and I love running, and then all of a sudden you get COVID and you find it difficult to get up the stairs. You know, I feel like you have to go to sleep all the time.
Down the hallway at Macquarie Uni, his fellow researchers think they know why. They have discovered the COVID-19 virus confused brain cells together, causing them to malfunction or stop working.
It could explain some of the neurological symptoms that have been associated with COVID, like loss of smell. or brain fog.
So, how did they do it? They created mini brains. This is them, tiny white spots created from human stem cells.
It's really exciting because I think we are really closely mimicking what we see in the brain.
There's another remarkable strand to this story. After the mini brain was created here at Macquarie University, it was transported by plane from Sydney to Brisbane. And there, researchers with the Queensland Brain Institute infected the mini brain with the COVID virus.
In the pink, normal cells, but in yellow, a mass of fused cells.
I want to pause it here for a moment. 99.99% of American kids have been forced by the United States government to contract COVID multiple times. This is according to the government's own statistics. I don't know why they would even admit this, but this is one thing they did admit. Look it up on the CDC's website. You can look up the prevalence of COVID infections under the age of 18. 99.99% of Americans under the age of 18 have been forced at gunpoint to be infected multiple times by a deadly virus. Now, when I say at gunpoint, let me expand upon that because people might get triggered. What happens if you don't go to school? Police show up at your house. When police show up at your house and tell you to do something, what happens? If you say no, they have a monopoly of violence. That violence often extends to guns. If you don't go to school and get infected with COVID and get indoctrinated with American mythology and get indoctrinated with other capitalistic drone-like breaking down of the soul, then what happens? Thugs, gangsters with guns show up at your front door and drag you. That's what happens. It happened to me as a kid. I've said this story before. I had chronic health issues as a kid. My school threw out my doctor's notes and called the cops anyway. I don't know why. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. Who knows? Maybe I'll go and ask those motherfuckers one of these days. But, I had cops come to my house and force me, in some instances, to go to school against my wishes while I was chronically ill, resulting in traumatic experiences in my childhood where I was extremely sick at school. I was obviously sick at school. I was probably spreading an illness to other kids. And why? Because gangsters with guns forced me to do so. And thankfully, when I was going to school, there was no COVID. So again, I just want people to understand this. 99.9% of kids got forced by the government. But, I don't know, man. What happened to protect the kids? If I ever had a child, and I am not planning on having a child, but you never know. I could at some point change my mind. But, if I ever have a kid, you know what I would do? I would do anything to protect my child. You often hear people say that. They're lying. They wouldn't do anything to protect their child. They actively did nothing to protect their child from COVID. They actively made it worse. Whenever you hear parents in a country where 99.99% of kids were forced to go to school during an infectious disease pandemic, whenever you hear parents say, I would do anything for my kids, I need you to understand that that's total and complete bullshit. But why do they say it? Because they want to sound like moral people. Not just to the world around them, but to themselves. It's a story that they tell themselves. If something happened, I would be there and rush to my child's defense. They don't mean it. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They did nothing about COVID. Most parents in this country actively made it worse. Most parents in this country are like, we need to open the school, man. Most parents in this country actively wanted their children to get even sicker. But again, we can play the blame game. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the truant officers. Oh, it's the president. It's the governor. It's this. It's that. It's woo. But fundamentally, What is the natural urge of a parent when it comes to their child? To protect them, right? Not if you're an American. Not if you're an American. So next time you hear someone say, I would do anything to protect my kid, and if they have a kid under the age of 18 who's going to school, you know they're full of shit. But the real question is, do they know that they're full of shit? Probably not, because they're a fucking zombie. Let's keep going.
The COVID virus hides behind, evading the body's immune system.
In 10% of the experimental conditions, the neuronal activity completely stopped.
Researchers don't have a way of unfusing those damaged cells yet, but the Macquarie Uni team have now patented a drug they believe will lessen the viral load and stop the brain cells fusing, giving the COVID virus no place to hide. In Ryde, Mark Burrows, 9 News.
So again, they're going to develop a drug. How great. And in America, that drug is going to be owned by a corporation that you're probably going to have to spend thousands of dollars for. So that's great. But that's one of the other things that people, not just Americans, they're always like, oh, we can solve this. In the future, we can solve it. We'll get a drug. The magic bullet. The magic bullet that will keep us all safe. I've got a magic bullet. It's called stay the fuck home, wear a mask, read the fucking news. That's the magic fucking bullet. But no, I gotta take a super drug, a magic pill, a magic shot, something. Something. It's gotta be magic. Because people don't operate in the real world. People operate in magic land. And, you know, again, I look at this and I see, what are children? They are human beings that don't even have a fully developed brain. So if this kind of thing would happen to someone whose brain is not even fully formed, we know what happens when you give children lead in gasoline or in water. What does it do? It stunts the development of their brain, which results in what? Less empathy, more aggression, lower intelligence. But don't worry. In the future, we can create a magic thing that will solve all of these problems. Right? Right? Let's not fix our diet now. Let's not drink clean water now. Let's not breathe clean air now. Let's wait until the future so that we can take a magic drug that's going to solve all of our problems. This pack of cigarettes isn't going to kill me, so why stop now? Anyway, there you go. I hope I'm not being too depressing. Depressing. Realign, there's an active graph on their website. I think the term you need to look up is it's seroprevalence of antibodies or whatever in minors, I think. You know, they've got it's all obscured on their website, but I believe that's what you need. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's depressed, why be depressed when you can play video games? Am I right, people? But you know what else you can do when you play video games? Stay at home and not get infected with a virus. And because my politics are so personal to me, I want to help people not be bored while they're at home isolating from COVID-19. And that's why I made a brand new video game for you all to play. It is an expansion for the hit cereal box game Chex Quest, which was built on the Doom engine. You can see some screenshots here. I've got 2 brand new episodic installations of the Chex Quest series. Now, again, I don't like Chex cereal, I don't like General Mills, but I like Doom. And I mean, what else do you want other than to blow up a bunch of snot monsters? So check out Chex Quest: The Penultimate Breakfast on Doom World. And just for those wondering, a lot of people say, I don't have Doom. I don't have Doom. Well, guess what? Chex Quest itself is abandonware. It's free. In fact, there is a download for the original Chex Quest right here. So you don't need to pay a dime to play this WAD. Actually, you can download chex.wad from the internet, and you can download a Doom source port, and then you can download my level sets and play them for free. So next time I do a Doom map set and you motherfuckers complain, I'm going to tell you, go play my Chex Quest levels. So there you go. I'm depressed. My mom has cancer. I can't go outside for long periods without a mask. We haven't gotten rain for a teeny... Yeah. I feel you. Except I'm like half your age. So, you know, no offense to you, of course. But it's like, for me, it's way more daunting. But yeah, I feel you. All right, let's keep going. I would, of course, be remiss if I were to not cover the most pressing news of the day. Air quality alerts for 1/3 of the country? Nah, who cares? Ongoing pandemic killing thousands a week? Who cares? Let's talk about the big ticket items, folks. Orange man bad. Donald Trump indicted on 7 counts in classified documents probe. Former President Orange J. Man has been indicted on 7 counts in the special counsel's classified documents probe, a stunning development that marks the first time a former president has faced federal charges. Trump is facing a charge under the Espionage Act, his attorney Jim Trusty said on CNN Thursday, as well as charges of obstruction of justice, destruction of falsified records, conspiracy, and false statements. The special counsel has been investigating Trump's handling of classified documents that were brought to his Mar-a-Lago, Florida resort after he left the White House, blah, blah, blah. The former president wrote on Truth Social, blah, 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 quote, summoned to appear at the federal courthouse on Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Quote, the corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted seemingly over the boxes hoax, Trump wrote. Trusty told CNN's Caitlin Collins that Trump attorneys have received a summons via email from the Justice Department, blah, blah, blah. He called the Espionage Act charge ludicrous. In a sign of how tightly held the special counsel kept word of this indictment, the U.S. Secret Service and U.S. Marshals did not get advance notice and were surprised by Trump's announcement on social media, law enforcement officials said Tuesday. Law enforcement is now scrambling to prepare for the expected court appearance next week, blah, blah, blah. Federal indictment, blah, blah, blue. I am an innocent man. Trump has railed against the special counsel investigation and the other probes into his conduct, claiming they are all efforts to stop him politically. The former president has insisted that any criminal charges will not stop his 2024 campaign. Trump released a 4-minute video Thursday evening repeating many of his past claims, including blah, blah, blah. I am an innocent man. I did nothing wrong. Trump said in a video. I mean, maybe I could watch the video. Should I look up the video? Fuck it. I'm going to go get this video. Let me figure this out. I'm learning about this for the first time. I got high as shit last night, so I was not in the mood for that. Let's get this fucking video here. The endless buffer.
I'm an innocent man.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. God damn it. This goddamn orange man with the jump scares. Like, Jesus Christ. Alright.
Innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well. If they would devote their energies to honor.
Real quick, because this is on Sky News, they do that thing where they blur the video, but I want you to look at this region here. Like, what is this background? He's in, like, some weird-ass, like, what is this shit that he's, like, standing in front of? You know what I mean? But, okay.
Honesty and integrity would be a lot better for our country. They could do a lot better.
Like, this motherfucker's, like, out there twirling their fucking goddamn 1854-ass mustache. Like, what the fuck?
They could do a lot of great things. Our country is going to hell. And they come after Donald Trump, weaponizing the Justice Department.
I love that, by the way, that he talks about himself in third person. Like, let's just, like, for those of you that don't know, Donald Trump has a history of talking about himself in third person. This is one of my favorite Trump stories. But he used to, like, I think it was, like, in the 80s or 90s, he would call, like, magazines. And, like, he wouldn't even really pretend to be another person, right? He wouldn't do, like, a different voice or anything, you know? But he would call up magazines pretending to be, like, some guy who knows Trump, like, personally. And he would, like, give magazines the scoop, like, hey, Trump's really popular with the ladies. Trump's doing really well right now with Wall Street. Trump has got a big deal coming. And he would, like, feed magazines. And they recorded this, right? And there's some of them that are public. You can look some of these up, actually. And he's not even doing a voice. He's not like I can do a voice. Like, yeah, these guys. Like, you could, where the guy, he's not even doing a voice. Like, right? So he's got a history of referring to himself in the third person. So it's always funny to see that kind of leak out.
Weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI. We can't let this continue to go on because it's ripping our country to shreds. We have such big problems, and this shouldn't be one of them. It's a hoax, but it's called election interference. They're trying to destroy a reputation so they can win an election. But we're in a position where we're going to make America great again. I'm innocent, and we will prove that very, very soundly and hopefully very quickly. Thank you very much.
So anyway, there you go. Orange man indicted. Don't worry about the pandemic. Don't worry about the fucking poisoned food supply. Don't worry about the poisoned water supply, the poisoned air supply. Because the orange man is going down. Is he? Is he? Is he? I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. Like I've said many times, and even on this one, too, and I'm seeing it, the indictment, so now I believe it, right? But my position has always been, I will believe it when I see it. So I have just seen the indictment, therefore I believe it. Will he get jail time? Will he actually face any actual accountability at all? You know, paying a fine that's like, when he's a multi-billionaire, that's not accountability. That's just called, like, paying your bills. That's called keeping the lights on. You know, that's called, like, fucking, that's just, like, factored into the budget. You know what I mean? So I'm talking about genuine accountability at all. Is it even possible for the orange man to face any genuine accountability? I don't know. But again, I'll believe it when I see it, and I'll watch with a keen eye. I'll say it. This is a silver lining if I've ever seen one. But there you go. So, boom. All right. while we're talking about Donald Trump, aka Orange J Man, let's tune in to some of his supporters. Now, real quick before I show you this headline, of course, I need to ground you in some basic facts. Now, I have a question. If you had a passionate political belief, let's say so passionate that you would be willing to do things that are theoretically criminal to accomplish your goals, and let's say if someone that you've never met and don't know called you on the phone and asked you, hey, would you commit a crime for political goals? In what universe would you say yes to that question? To a stranger on the phone? Well, if you're a Trump supporter in this universe, the answer is right here. 12 million Americans believe violence is justified to restore Trump to power. How did they get this information? They called people on the phone and said, hey, would you commit acts of violence to get Trump back in office? And they're like, hell yeah, I would! Woo! Trump time for, yeah! Make America great again. I'm gonna kill the gays. Yeehaw! Now, the reason why I think that this is an undercount is because you really have to be dumber than dog shit to answer a phone and just say, yes, I am planning on committing crimes. Like, you know, like, and I know conservatives, I know, dumb as shit. I know, right? I know, they're really fucking dumb. I get it. But that's why I think that this is an undercount. I think that there's a lot of Republicans and Trumpers, and especially the more violent ones, especially the ex-military, paramilitary groups, that know how to answer a question like that. And the way you answer that question is, no, I would never even dream of committing an act of violence. That's against my moral philosophy. That's how you fucking answer a question like that, regardless of what your actual answer is. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, man. 2.5 years after the January 6th attack on the Capitol, insurrection, I believe, is the correct term, an estimated 12 million American adults, or 4.4% of the adult population, believe violence is justified to restore Donald Trump to the White House. Though the number of adults who believe this had declined since the insurrection, thank you, actually. They actually used the I words, so shout out to The Guardian. Recent survey data from the University of Chicago reveal alarming and dangerous levels of support for political violence and conspiracy theories across the United States. The University Chicago Research Center has been conducting dangers to democracy surveys of American adults on political violence and attitudes toward democracy since shortly after the Jan 6 attack. In new data from April shared exclusively with The Guardian, researchers found a continued support for violence to achieve various political goals on both sides of the aisle and a general distrust for democracy. The results are particularly alarming as the 2024 election approaches without essential safeguards, as some lawmakers say could help prevent another attack on U.S. democracy. For the next year and a half through the 2024 election, CPost will be releasing new survey data tracking continued dangers to democracy every 3 months. The data will be published first with The Guardian. The data will be critical at a time when efforts to erode democracy, blah, blah, blah. Quote, we are heading into an extremely tumultuous election season, said Robert Pape, a professor at University of Chicago who directs CPost. What's happening in the United States is political violence is going from fringe to mainstream. 1 in 5 Americans still believe the 2020 election, blah, blah, blah. 1 in 5. What is that number that I keep fucking saying? What is that number that I keep saying on my motherfucking show? 1 in 5 of human beings are fascists. It's a fact, people. This number has echoed throughout history. There have been research studies in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. How did the Holocaust happen? You know, 20, 30 years ago, there was a Holocaust, 6 million Jews died. Hey, a bunch of gay and trans people died, but we're not going to acknowledge that. We're going to erase that from the history books. But how did this genocide occur? What happened? Well, we found out in the 1960s that about 20% of people are fascists. They're Nazis. And that number ebbs and flows, right? You can convince more people to be Nazis. But, you know, pretty much 20% is the floor. Now, it might go down to 19%, maybe 18%, you know. But 20% is really the floor. That's what we need to fundamentally realize. About 1 in 5 people are neo-Nazis. These numbers have been documented in various studies throughout the last couple of decades. Started at first trying to figure out how the Holocaust happened when it was still in recent memory. Nowadays, you know, this is the way that it forms. I don't even, like... What do you do in this scenario? What you're seeing is really disturbing levels of distrust in American democracy, support for dangerous conspiracy theories, and support for political violence. Pape said it was important to track sentiments about political violence, comparing it to kindling for a wildfire, though many were unaware the events of January 6th would turn violent. Research showed that the public support for violence is widespread, so the attacks themselves should not have come as a surprise. Now, I just want to say this, as someone who covered January 6th in real time. Anyone who was surprised. Now, you can be surprised at just how crazy it was. That's, you know, knowing something is going to happen is always different than seeing it happen, right? But if you were surprised that it would be violent, I mean, you're just dumber than dog shit, man. If you did not understand at all on January 6, 2021, that shit was going to fucking pop off. Now, again, there's different, you know, not everyone predicted that someone would shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk, right? Like, but like, it was very easy. Like, I'm talking, you literally should have, like, if you read one news article about the election in the last 6 months from that point, you should understand, yeah, January 6th, shit's going to get bad, right? The idea that anyone would be surprised, I mean, fuck. But hey, I know, Americans are dumb as shit, so what are you going to do? Once you have support for violence in the mainstream, those are the raw ingredients, the raw combustible material, and then speeches typically by politicians can set them off. Or, if they get going, speeches can encourage them to go further. Before the January 6th insurrection, once again, thank you to The Guardian for using accurate terminology. There was chatter on online forums and among far-right groups about potential political violence when Congress met to count electoral votes to certify Joe Biden the winner of the presidential election, but it was Trump's speech at the White House ellipse that day that touched off the actual violence, Pape said. Now, again, what needs to be understood also is that there was going to be violence no matter what. People had already, like, planted bombs the day before. People had trucks full of guns and, like, all that kind of stuff, like explosives, you know, a couple streets. So there was going to be violence no matter what. But yes, if you want to say Donald Trump escalated what the violence could have been, I mean, it's hard to prove, but I'd say, yeah, probably. I would say that. Belief that use of force is justified to restore Trump to the presidency has declined. Now, again, I personally don't put faith in this number. And why is that? Once again, if you are calling someone on the phone and asking them, hey, would you commit acts of violence against the government in order to install a king? Like, it's pretty motherfucking obvious that you should say no, regardless of what your real answer is. Like, and I get it. I know Trumpers are fucking dumb. I know. I'm well aware how dumb these motherfuckers are, right? But some of them, I would say most of them probably know that if some guy is calling you on the phone, hey, would you commit acts of violence against the U.S. government to install a dictator? You should probably say no to that question. I'm just like, now again, there's going to be a chunk, apparently 12 million, that are like, well, you know, goddamn, you know, actually, I'm in the process of buying some illegal plutonium so I can build a nuclear bomb. It's like what? Like, again, 12 million maybe, give or take, but political actions that a minority of Americans believe justify the use of force. Achieving political goals that I support, 14%. Restore the federal right to abortion, 12%. Ensure members of Congress and other governments do the right thing. What the fuck does that even mean, by the way? 8%. Preserve the rights of whites, 6%. 6% of people think the use of force should be used to preserve the rights of whites. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. That sounds like a parody country album. Does anyone know how to play guitar? Does anyone want to make a parody album with me? Preserve the rights of whites. I mean, there's something there. There's something there. Okay. Prevent prosecution of Trump. Restore Trump to the presidency. So, I don't know, man. A little weird. A little weird. 10% of Americans believe the government is run by Satan-worshipping pedophiles. 10%. 1 in 10. Just think about it. If you ever leave the house, which you shouldn't because we're in an ongoing pandemic, it's pretty easy to be in a situation where there's 9 other people around you. And statistically speaking, 1 in 10 of those motherfuckers thinks the government is run by Satan-worshipping pedophiles. You know, the Catholic Church being the largest child molestation syndicate in the entire world, that's a fact. But instead, these guys think the U.S. government is run by Satan-worshipping pedophiles. Now, just to be clear, at this point in my life, I don't take polls at face value. I personally am someone that loves to do research of polls over time, which is why I often reference the research on fascism over the historical period of the research done from the 1960s all the way up until, right now. We see that 20%, 1 in 5 number pop up a lot over the history of these researches. So any individual poll to me, not very valuable. But it's always interesting when we see this kind of stuff. 1/4 of Americans believe in the Great Replacement theory. The Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. 1 in 4. 1 in 4. You can be carpooling to work. And statistically speaking, the guy in the back seat believes that Democrats want to replace white people in the electorate. So, well, again, there you go. Little weird, little freaky. But again, any individual poll shouldn't be taken at face value, so we gotta look at it in the overview. Trumpers have been killing people for years now. They've been attempting to kill people for years now. They've been committing acts of terrorism for years now. It's escalating. It's getting worse. Over the last 10 years, it's gotten worse. Every year, political violence is getting worse. So, I don't know, man. Some fucked up shit, if you ask me. But, I don't know. I'm just some fucking idiot on the internet. So, what are you gonna do? It's concerning given only 3% of Americans rebelled in the revolution and only 3% of Germans were members of the Nazi Party. Yeah, I mean, you don't need that many people. If you have very small minority that's extremely rigidly trained, organized, and passionate about what they want to accomplish, right, that's the news for today. It's Friday, everyone. Let's hang out, do a QCOC, questions, comments, or concerns. Some would even say queries, comments, or concerns. If you have any queries, if the queers got queries, please let me know. Once again, I'd like to advertise my new project. It's called Chex Quest, the Penultimate Breakfast, a Doom engine game, Chex Quest. Now, again, I don't endorse General Mills or Chex. Do not buy Chex. Do not purchase General Mills products. Instead, get this game for free. It's free. You don't need to have Doom for this one. My other sets require Doom, which costs money, theoretically. This one's free. It's abandonware. So, check it out. It's free. Have fun, motherfucker. There you go. So, there's going to be more episodes, by the way, so I will be updating this in the future. But it is free. Now, again, feel free to reach out or whatever if you need it, but write this down. All you need is to download the free chex.wad file. Download the source port. What is a source port? It is a game engine, which includes an executable which you click on to launch the game, called DSDA-Doom. You can find this with a simple Google search, or if you need help, feel free to reach out. And then download my game, which is chextpb.wad. It's completely free. All you need to do is download those 3 things, put them in the same folder, and then run the game. So, there you go. Jesus Christ, y'all motherfuckers. One fun thing I've been doing is I've been drawing the levels on paper. So, if anyone, you know, wants these, feel free to reach out. I'm not going to give them to you. But I'm drawing some levels on paper for fun. So, you know, a little spoiler alert. Make a version where it's fascists instead of aliens. I already did that. It's called Wolfenstein. But yeah, so if anyone's got some QCOCs for me, HMU. Lindsay ruins everything? I mean, I agree, but why? Soul Life? If anyone wants to see another drawing. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing with my spare time, is I'm spending all my days making video games. So that's how I'm trying to stay sane. Y'all need to find a hobby that you can enjoy just like I do. So if there's any kind of advice I can give you, find something that's creative and that you're very passionate about. Because if you don't have that, I mean, I'm depressed anyway. You know, like I have a very intense passion for what I'm doing, and I'm still depressed, right? But I mean, like, Jesus Christ. But you know, it helps. Definitely find something you can sink time into that feels you know, there you go. But yeah, don't buy Chex cereal. That shit's garbage. Q, any tips on making map 7s that aren't just dead simple remakes? Well, I mean, you can just eschew the whole triggers altogether. That's one way to do it. But what you can also do is you can utilize the triggers in interesting ways. Perhaps you could use a timer. Let's say you have a very tall ceiling. You have a crusher line. The crusher will slowly go down, crush the monster, which triggers something. So you can use timers on that one. Have a crusher start as soon as, like, on the first line that you move on. That kind of stuff. You can have archviles resurrect the monsters so that they can repeatedly trigger. They can trigger the thing over and over again, so you can do that kind of stuff. So, Those are just some ideas off the top of my head. Realon, member for 9 months. How much for drawing? I don't know yet. I need them right now. I'm still working on the level, so I need the blueprints. So ask me again in a couple weeks. Will there be a show tomorrow? Well, tomorrow is Saturday, and I've decided that I care about my mental health more than I care about doing this show. So I don't do shows on the weekend anymore. I'm sorry. You know, I don't know what to say. Unless today is Thursday and I've just miscalculated, which is also possible. Qcock, how about making copies of the drawings? I mean, I can make copies. I can just scan them and then you can print them out, you know? Yeah, I mean, I will say this. Like I've said, I have a shitload of side projects. You know, one of them I'm just sharing with you is my level design stuff that I like doing. That's one of my side projects. Still got a shitload of other ones. One of my side projects is I want to come up with some sort of, you know, something that I put out on either Wednesday or the weekends. You know, that's just something that I'm going to come up with at some point. I need a hobby fur. I lost my creative juice. Well, let me tell you this. This is another thing, going back to like the rant from earlier about childhood trauma and abuse. Is I fundamentally believe children are beautiful and incredible creatures. Children are the humans that we all wish we were. And one of the points of school is to grind you down, right? I remember when I was very young, I was very creative. I was very passionate about creating things like I am now. But there was a period, you know, like where I wasn't creative at all. Like I was depressed all the time. I was ground down by society. I just didn't feel like I could do anything. And it's like, you know, I say this, once a child is of schooling age, it's already pretty much too late for them. So, but I know a lot of people feel that, like, you know, when they were still really young, maybe like 9 years old or like whatever, you know, they used to have like these creative arts. They used to draw, they used to paint, they would maybe, you know, make music with the pots and pans, whatever. And then slowly over time, you got to go to school, got to follow the script, got to go off to college, got to start dating, got to get married, got to have kids. Next thing you know, you're 65 or 67 or 80 or whatever the retirement age will be. You retire and you have no hobbies. This is a thing that's all over the world. You see people, they retire, they go crazy, and then they just jump back into the workforce. You know? How does that happen? Decades and decades of selling your soul to a corporation. Doesn't matter, could just the corporation, the US government. Selling your soul, selling everything, your passion, for nothing. For nothing. You're not even selling it, you're just giving it away. You're giving it to them? Is there another option under capitalism? Yeah. The option is to spend time and energy, which it requires a lot of, to keep the flame alive. You know, you can still go to work every day, and instead of coming home and drinking beer and falling asleep watching Netflix, develop a passion project. You know, and everyone's in a different position, right? But you got to keep it alive, because you don't want to be 65, 70 years old, retiring and going crazy because you have no hobbies. And there are people in my family. I know people. In my family, I know people in, you know, other people's families that, you know, grandparents or the parents of other people, they've retired And then within a year, 2 years, they're right back to work because they don't know what to fucking do. And that's sad. And that's another one of society's ways of breaking down your inner creativity, telling you things like coloring books are for children, telling you things like, wow, this is for kids, video games are for kids. That's what I got when I was younger. You know, like a teenager, you know, I got made fun of in school. I mean, you know, this is still like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I guess now. I was the nerd. I played video games. I'm a loser. Only children, only little kids play that. Nowadays, everyone plays video games, right? But Jesus, you know. Find something. You gotta find something. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the fucking point? Some people, their hobby is raising their kid. That's a good hobby to have. Now, I suggest finding other hobbies, right? Because you don't want to have empty nest syndrome. That happens to a lot of people. It's the same phenomena as retiring, going crazy, and going back into the workforce. You don't want to have empty nest syndrome. You know, you put all your energy into raising your kid, which is great. But then your kid leaves, and then you go fucking crazy. And then what do? You fucking have another kid at the age of 60? I mean, some people do that, right? I have too many hobbies. That's a problem that is always a good thing to have. If anyone out there hasn't yet constructed or ordered the materials for a Corsi Rosenthal box pictured here, if you're living in an area with poor air quality, I built that because of COVID, so I had it lying around already. For COVID stuff, so it's always good to have. Be prepared. It's only ever going to get worse. If you are someone who's huffing on the drug known as hopium, it's only going to get worse. So build your goddamn Corsi Rosenthal boxes now. Buy your masks now. Buy your fucking HEPA filters now. Because you don't want to be the guy who's last in line, and then the motherfucker's like, sorry, we're out, and then you go home and fucking cough yourself to death. So I posted a link in yesterday's segment description, but here's the link again. Corsi Rosenthal, cube and or box. I prefer the word box over cube, but cube is fine too. Corsi Rosenthal box. The requirements are HEPA filters, a box fan, and some cardboard, and some duct tape. I'm also holding it up from the ground with mason jars. I was telling the story, this mason jar here, as you can see, I told this story yesterday, but it has bullets in it, bullet casings even, which I picked up from the streets of North Carolina on January 1st. After New Year's Eve, because in North Carolina everyone loves to shoot machine guns in the air to celebrate whatever, I don't know. And so I walked around town and picked up all the bullet casings, because why not? I thought it was funny, and I put them in a jar, and now the jar is there on my floor. So boom. Y'all kinda. I wouldn't say that, Prene. Y'all kinda implies, well, I associate that term with white people, and that is not the case in this instance. So, inaccurate, in my opinion. It's just a Southern thing in general. That's just what Southern people do, I guess. Will I do another art stream with the letter hack? One of these days, you know. The only thing that would prevent that from being true is if one of us dies. Now, you know, it'll happen eventually at some point again. Unless one of us dies. Which, you know, if Letterhack is going to go to another Comic-Con or whatever, you know, it's not an inconceivable scenario. Yeah, that's right. My friend, when we were 12, shot a hole through his hand. Holy motherfucking Jesus. Dude, my car insurance just went up $50. And my CC limit dropped $300, both for no reason. Damn. That sucks. Oh, yeah, give me some more goddamn queries, motherfuckers. You're not gonna see me until motherfucking day. That's a long time. That's a long goddamn time. So, get your queries in. Where are the queers at? I love sucking saliva. It's just that I find it a soothing sound, and it's also a fun stim. I do that a lot, so. What's the best thing one can do with $50,000? Well, I'm going to actually answer this question sincerely. The best thing you can do if you have $50,000, in my opinion, invest it as much as you can. I would say invest like 75% of it in yourself. That's what I would say. Keep 25% aside. Invest 75% in yourself. Now, $50,000, it seems like a lot of money, but it's not. In the grand scheme of things, right? I'm talking about fix your diet. I'm talking about all this other stuff. Do all of that. And because that's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a happier person. It's going to make you a more caring and compassionate person. It's going to re-regulate a lot of parts in your body. And when that happens, you become a positive influence for other people. Then what you can do with the rest of the money is help other people in the ways that you helped yourselves. That's my recommendation if you have $50,000 you want to spend. Will I do more random drawings? I don't know. I mean, the answer is of course I will. Like, it's a duh. Like, the idea that I would stop ever using pen on paper for whatever reason in the next 80 years of my life, or like, come on now. Yes, I will. But I'm thinking the question you meant to ask is, when will I do them? And I don't know. What did I think of the RE4 remake? Did I like it better than the original? Well, first of all, what you mean to say is than. Second of all, I haven't finished it yet. I'm not going to lie. I was streaming it when it came out. I didn't finish it. But I loved it. Now, I have a problem when it comes to playing new video games. It's hard for me to get immersed. But that said, I loved it. Like, so far from what I've played, and I will finish it at some point, just to be clear. I don't know if I'll stream the second half, right? But I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. But is it better than the original? Well, that's not an English sentence, so I don't know how to answer that. But if you're meant to ask if it's better than the original, that's impossible. Now, once again, I love Resident Evil 4, the original. It's one of my favorite games. I used to have the speedrun world record for that game. So for those of you that don't know that, there you go. I used to be the fastest, which in speedrun parlance converts to best. But, you know, that's debatable in some instances. Sometimes you get lucky. But I used to have the fastest ever recorded run for Resident Evil 4. I don't anymore, of course. You know, I stopped playing. I retired a long time ago. But I love Resident Evil 4. It is impossible, and for me personally, for a remake to be better than the original, just because of my own personal attachment. My own personal attachment to Resident Evil 4 is much different than others. I mean, again, a lot of people have nostalgia for it, but again, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I also have nostalgia for, there was a period in my life where I speedran. I played Resident Evil 4, the original, for like 8 hours a day for like 3 months straight. And that's me, that game is burned into my brain. Like, I can literally, in my head right now, and I'm not even joking, right? No, don't be sorry, Cliff. I'm just giving you a hard time for fun. But in my head, I can literally play through the entire game in my head right now. Like, 1-to-1. I know where every single plant is. I know where every wall is. I know where every enemy spawns. I know where all the barrels are. I know every single feature of that game extensively. I could do the whole thing in my head right now if I wanted to. There's no way for me to prove that, of course, but, trust me, bro. And so that being said, it's impossible for the remake to be better. That said, though, the remake is fucking phenomenal. Like, and it's really, really good. Like, a 10 out of 10. Like, if the original is a 10 out of 10 for its time, 2005, the remake is a 10 out of 10 for its time, 2023. I mean, it's fucking phenomenal. Like, I was blown away. Like, I'm goosebumps just playing that shit. Like, both of them, it's just, they did it. I don't know what to say. I was nervous. Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games. I was like, oh, they're going to fuck it up. They did not. And again, I say this having not even beaten it. Right? So it's possible the second half of the remake is shit. I don't know yet. But damn, okay? I just need to say, wow. Giving to the homeless and investing in myself is what I'll do. It's a good plan. But my opinion, when it comes to money... Now, when I say invest in yourself, what I don't mean is buy a bunch of useless shit. You know what I mean? So... This is the thing with rich people and lottery winners. You see this with lottery winners too, like poor people that become rich overnight, is they spend money on stupid shit like cars, jewelry, clothes. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't spend money on nice things per se, right? But what I'm saying is you need to be conscious of what you're doing. Like, if you get $100,000 and you're spending like $80,000 on a new car, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. You can spend $80,000 on 5 years worth of healthy food so that you can fix your health, so that you can become a better person. You can live longer. Like, think about it. Money in our society, now again, there's a fixed cap to this where money at a point, you hit the 100% meter, and then anything extra is where we get into oligarch territory, we get into useless wealth territory. But I know most people watching my show have not hit that point, myself included. But there is a point where money can directly translate into longer life expectancy, right? Poverty is directly comparable and correlative with lower life expectancy up until a point, right? So for me personally, if I just had a large sum of money, I would invest that into my health. Now, that comes in the form of diet. That comes in the form of, maybe if there's a medical procedure that you've been pushing off because you can't afford it, that's not a situation that I feel like I'm in, but that's possible. Soul Life, I'm not saying you buy it all at once, you dumbass. I need to find some classic Atari games to play. Atari's never been my personal thing, but I'm more of a PlayStation 1 collector. I like PlayStation 1. I also like Game Boy. Those are my things, so that's what I collect for. I also collect big box PC games. That's my territory. But yeah, Atari, I'm very familiar with Atari. I'm very familiar with retro video game collection as a whole marketplace. Anything PS1, even some PS2 generation, anything backwards from there, I know a good amount of information on, because one of my part-time I mean, I don't know if you could consider it a part-time job, because I did it myself. It was a self-employed thing. I would be one of those people that would buy and sell video games online. Yeah, I know. Some people have a negative opinion of those people, but I say go fuck yourself. How else am I supposed to make money in this kind of economy? What I would do is I would just buy random giant video game lots, and I would play all the video games a little bit. I would test them all out, make sure they'd work. Some instances I'd complete packaging. You know, sometimes you get loose discs or loose cartridges. You find a box, you put it with the box, you resell it. That was the thing I did for many years. So as a result, you know, I know a little bit about Atari. I know a little bit about other stuff that I may not have extensive nostalgia for, but. My ex had to tell me restaurant cloths are for your lap. I didn't know. Restaurant cloths? What the fuck? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can emulate any Atari game. I mean, all of them are free, essentially, right? But, oh, restaurant, there you go. But man, there's something special about having that, like, cartridge, right? And I know, we all know by now, at least I hope you do, that blowing in it doesn't do anything, and sometimes it makes it worse, especially if you got spittle. But there's nothing, oh man. Yeah, again, I love disc-based console. My favorite console is the PlayStation. But, like, I gotta admit, like, there's something about that Super Nintendo, you know, like, and then clunk, you know, the sound it makes when you just clunk that motherfucker in. So I know you can emulate the games for free. Software is software. You can play it on your computer. That reminds me, someone asked in the chat if you can play my map set with a controller. Yes, you can. That said, I don't know how easy it is to do, and I've never done it personally, but I know you can, because I know people do with everything I suggested earlier. So I know it supports that, but you'd have to, like, just go in the options menu. I think it should just be easy as just binding the keys to the controller. It should be that easy. But anyway, yeah, same thing with fucking cassette tapes. You know, clunk, and then, like, you know, when you have, like, the little cap on it, you go like, you know, so you open the cap, right, and it makes that spring. You go like, ah. I just love it, man. That is my shit right there. And the same thing with discs. The ASMR, the sound of just, like, when you put a disc in a tray and then you snap it into place. Fuck me, man. I'm gonna come. You know what I'm saying? Kids these days, they don't even know. I'm just saying, kids these days, they don't fucking understand. They don't understand what physical media is all about. Like, there's something crazy about having, like, a big plastic box called a game. Think about it, dude. You got a plastic box and it's a game, right? Wow. Like, you hold it in your hands. I mean, I've got some in the back room over there, but you hold it in your hands. It's this big, thick, and it's always thick plastic. These old things. Thick ass plastic. None of that flimsy shit you see now. Thick ass plastic, and that's called a video game. Oh man, powerful, powerful stuff. Powerful. Yep, the old plastic that goes gray to yellow, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Now, I will say this. If anyone, this is just a public service announcement, and, you know, I'm also probably going to turn this off very soon here, so brace for impact. But if you have any interest in retro video games or retro technology, computers, you know, music stuff, like video players, like, you know, the CED, Laserdisc, any retro tech, video games, media of any kind, that shit has a shelf life. Okay? If that is something you're interested in, maybe just a trip to the past, relive the glory days, I say sooner than later. Because there's going to come a time in a couple, like 10, 20 years when that shit just has a shelf life. It just expires. The plastic's going to fucking fall apart. Sometimes you see a lot of like the circuit boards, like, you know, batteries explode, you know, some of the circuits fall apart. It, you know. So if you enjoy that stuff, I would say look into it now before it's too late. Anyway, y'all, I'm out of here. So, go fuck yourselves. Or don't if you don't want to. I mean, it's optional. You can choose whether or not to do that. And there you go. That's all I got. That's it. Literally, I could have something else. It's possible. And, you know, if you believe in the many worlds theory of quantum mechanics, right, it is theoretically possible that I could have something else. But that is not the branch universe that you have found yourself in. And so, with that being said, goodbye.